Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our policy development and review session from the MSL Learn webinar series. I'm going to turn things right over to Pam Henley, who is our host and our expert today. Thanks so much, Pam, and take it away.
Thanks, Colette, and welcome to everybody that's here and watching the recording later. Today, we're just going to talk about policies a little bit, kind of a big overview of policies. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat because Colette is going to monitor that for me. And we'll just have a little policy talk because everybody loves policies, right? So here we are, policy review. So the big question is, why do we have policies? And you can kind of answer that yourself. I don't expect an answer from everybody, but really policies are kind of like the support for your library. It explains, why you do what you do and why you do it a certain way. It educates people to what the library is about and what they can expect from the library. It really, when you have a good policy, makes sure that everybody gets the same treatment. Everybody's treated equally. You don't have something like, oh, you can do this because I know you, and you can't do that because I've never seen you before, or you're from out of town. Everybody gets the same treatment, and that's what policies help you do. And like I said, then it kind of tells the public what they can expect. I think most librarians, the first place they go when they move to a new town is they go to the public library. And these days, they may even look around online first to find out, what do I need to get a library card? And if your policies are there, then they'll know I need to show up with this, or this is how I get a library card. So the public, they may not all do as much, but it does educate the public of what they can expect. And also gives your staff some guidelines of how they're going to be doing things. And I haven't really had a lot of experience with this, but we always say that it does provide a little legal support for you and your library should things come up, some kind of issue come up, especially if you're in a library where a town or a city or a county where you have an attorney available. A lot of libraries will have the local attorney review their policies before they actually adopt them to make sure that they're working well and they haven't overlooked something or they're not conflicting with any kind of laws. So they do provide you a little legal support too. So if you have policies, that's one thing, but good policies are another thing. So you want to keep in mind that your policies really would reflect your library's mission and vision statements to support those. And I did read this and I thought this was a really good thing to put out, that it is a balance between what the library can provide and what the public wants. And it's kind of trying to walk that line so that everybody gets what they want and it works well for the library. And that's a fine line sometimes. And we know you can't please everybody all the time, but at least your policies can help you go towards that goal. Your policies are going to be consistent and they're going to be current. That's why we're talking about reviewing them every so often. If your collection developed policy says, we collect VHS tapes, or we collect books on cassette or cassette tapes, and you don't do that and haven't done that for 5 to 10 years, maybe you want to review your policy. So you should be reviewing policies, and that's part of what we're doing today, talking about today. And really, it's hard for smaller libraries sometimes who don't have maybe websites or someone who can do something, but your policies need to be accessible for people. I don't know that most people walk into a library and say, can I see your notebook on policies? But most libraries do keep their policies in some kind of gathered location. So they are available if somebody asks, but it's not something that people usually ask for. It's really nice if you have them available online on your library website or wherever your online presence is, to gather them there so that people can just find them on their own if they want to. Like when you move to a town and you want to find out how to get a library card, finding them that way be really good. User-friendly also, just so that you're not using a lot of library jargon in your policy that almost doesn't make sense. You want them to be easy to read and easy to understand for everybody. One reason we talk about having maybe a lawyer review that for you is so that you are following all the local and state regulations. A little tip on that one. And then you're going to review them all the time. If there's any questions about these, don't hesitate to put it in the chat, but those would be good policies, especially the current. So let's say that you're a new library director of a small library somewhere, and you've come across this notebook in a drawer somewhere that you've never seen before, and it has a couple of policies in it, and you realize, oh my gosh, we don't even have a lot of policies. So if you need to develop some policies, what do you think you need to do? What's the best way? Hopefully you already have some, but if you don't, if you need to develop something, I think it's important that you decide what's the most pressing issue that you need to work on. Oh yes, Cole's chat about the binder from the past, and that happens a lot. I've seen that. So if there's an issue right now that is very pressing, that might be the one you need to work on first. And then you can work on some of the others that are less critical. The important thing is to keep your library's mission and vision statement in mind when you're making a policy, just because you want them to all work together and support it. A lot of good policies do have a little statement at the beginning of the policy of this is why this policy and how this policy supports the library's vision. If you want to be a welcoming place to all, well, this is how we're going to do it. And oh my God, sorry, my phone. Okay, we're okay now. And your community, keep your community's needs in mind also when you're creating your policy. And we'll talk a little bit more about finding out about your community a little bit later in this. So when you're thinking of the policy and you're going to put something together, you kind of come up with ideas and think about how is it going to affect some of the groups that you're looking at or talking about. And you might even want to get input from some of those groups too. If you're looking at some kind of, I don't know, meeting room policy where you're doing your story time and you have those moms with their huge strollers who are showing up and your library is not that big, and you're going to have some kind of policy about, strollers all have to be parked outside. Well, how does that affect them when they're trying to bring in their kids and all the stuff that kids have that they're carrying with them? Is that going to make it working for them or not? And maybe get input from them. Oh, could we do it this way? Or could we do it a different way? So get some input from the people that you're going to be affected by that policy, and think of the consequences too, and just toss out ideas back and forth of, if we do this, what will be the effect of it and who's going to be affected. That would be the first part to think about when you're developing a policy. The other thing is you want to make sure, if you're a big library for sure, involve your staff, because they're the ones who are going to have to implement some of these policies, and they may already have some ideas of, we could do this better, or this might work better for everybody. So involve the staff, get input from the staff, and also the groups that might be affected, like we mentioned, that find out what's going to work for them. Maybe they have ideas and suggestions that might make it work better for them too. An important thing in a policy is to try to use language that is, like positive. So many things are negative, no shirt, no shoes, no service, no drinks, no this, no that. And you can be a little more positive, please enjoy your food outside before you come in the library, or, your covered beverage is welcome in the library. So try to be more positive. That's just a little more welcoming thing. That's a signage thing that we talk about in other things. Of you can have really interesting signs and really more pleasant, welcoming words out there in your policies. One thing a lot of people have been changing now, instead of unattended children, they will call them child safety, or child safety and vulnerable adult policies, to protect people instead of unattended. It's just a little bit different phrases, might make things better. So as you're brainstorming, you might think of better words to use to describe some of your policies. And when you get to procedures, which are separate from policies, you do want to have the staff input too, because they're the ones who are going to be implementing these things. And talk to other libraries and do some other research and find out what are other places doing for best practices. And then review them again and ask yourself too, do we really need this? Is this something we need, or are we just copying everybody and we're just out there? The one thing I would say is that you do want to be proactive instead of trying to be reactive. So be looking at other places and see what policies people have. And if you think, oh, we might want to have one of these because something might come up in the future where we are going to wish we had one. So it is better to already have something in place that you can review and revise if you need to, instead of, oh, something's come up and now we have to make a policy. That's very reactive and not the best practice. After you have your policies all written and you're happy with what it says and you have the mission statements supported and your statements in there, think through all these 4 things. Is it legal? So hopefully you can have a lawyer review it, or just make sure that you're not going against any kind of local or state or federal laws and regulations. Is it clear? Is it obvious what you're looking for? And is it concise? You don't want policies that are pages and pages. Ideally, a policy would be a page or less. Some of them are a little longer. Collection development policies tend to be a couple pages because you do sometimes get into different collections and different materials and how you add those to the library. But most policies could really be about a page. They don't need to be novels. The big thing, is it reasonable? Like, is it fair for everybody? And is it measurable? A good thing to think about on this is, if you have a policy, if you are still a library that collects fines, and a lot of places have gone away with that, but if you still have fines, is it like, if you have an overdue book for 3 days, we're going to charge you 10 cents a day? That's measurable. Instead of oh, your book is overdue and you'll be charged a fine, but there's no specifications in there. That's not measurable. And also, oh, you have an overdue book, we're going to charge you $5 a day. Is that reasonable? Probably not. So you want to consider the reasonable and the measurable so that everybody knows exactly what to expect. And is it equitable? We talked about that. It should be fair for everybody. It's not that, oh, we had that at one library I worked at. It's like, if you were a city employee, you didn't have fines. And they decided that's not equitable. Everybody should either have fines or not, but you don't get special privileges just because you happen to work there, or you don't get special privileges for some other reason. So it's fair for everybody. So those are the 4 big tests to look at your policies when you're reviewing your policies. And if it passes those, if they can pass those 4 tests, then it's probably a pretty good policy. After you have your policies and your board has approved those, and it should be done, at least here in Montana, we do them at a public meeting where it's been noticed and it's on the agenda for review. And then after it's been, if there's any discussion, then it shows up on the agenda at the following meeting to actually be voted on and approved. So after it's been approved, now you have to communicate this policy. You have to let people know what you're doing, what to expect. You have to, if you're in a larger library especially, you need to make sure that all your staff knows. If you have substitutes and part-time people who may not always be there or be in the discussions of things going on, they may not be aware. So you need to make sure you have internal communication so everybody knows what the policies are, and also externally so people in the public know what to expect. If they want to book your meeting room or they want to bring in a display, what do they need to do? So you have those communication things. Can be, it's really nice if they are on your website so everybody can find them, but at least something in a newsletter or some other way to communicate to people. And then you start watching. How does that work? Are there issues when you're trying to implement this policy? Is all of a sudden, oh, we didn't think about that. Do we need to rethink it? Do we need to review it again? Do we need to revise it? So you do want to, because policies are not static. They're going to change, and that's okay. That's why you review them on a regular basis, because circumstances change. Like we were talking about before, you probably don't collect, VHS tapes anymore. So you want to review your policies. But let's get into the real quickly policy versus procedure. Policy is the big overview of things, of how or what might happen, how things are going to be handled, but the procedures are the step-by-step. This is what the staff is actually going to do. So procedures are usually kept separate because procedures could change and the policy may still be okay the way it is. And you don't have to go through the whole review and board approval of the policy if you're changing just a little bit of procedure, like, you're going to take checks instead of cash, or you're going to take a credit card or something. However you want to change your procedures, those are pretty easy to do. So you want to keep those separate if you can, because the policy is still going to be valid. So an important thing that we did want to mention in this is finding out about your community. If you're trying to make a policy, you might want to know who's in your community. You know who comes to the library, but maybe you don't know who's not coming to the library and why don't they? And is there a policy issue that's keeping them from the library? Or is there something you can do to make it easier for people? So the census data, which is data.census.gov, I believe, is a good way to find out more about your community, because you may not realize some of the groups that are in your community. If they're not coming to the library, you may not see them. So it's a good idea to look at census data. And then you can start thinking about your community. And if you find there's some new groups that you don't know much about, it's really helpful to reach out to them and get some input from them and get some ideas of what would make the library work better for them. Is there anything you can do to make it more accessible? If you're only open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, well, what about all those people who work? They aren't going to be able to come on the weekends, or they won't be able to come in the evenings. So trying to find a way to make it better for everybody is a good thing. So the census data is very useful. And I think everybody in the library world knows this, but certainly you want to look around and just borrow from other people. If you look around on other library sites and you find something that sounds pretty good, you can adapt it for your library. And we do that all the time. We call it sharing. And that works really well. So you don't have to write a policy from scratch. Certainly you can find something out there that you can adapt for your library, or it will give you ideas. You might look at a list of policies that another library has and realize, oh, we don't have one of those, and maybe we might need one of those. So that's a good way to find other ideas for policies if you need to be making some policies. That's about all I can say about policies this morning. It's a pretty quick overview, but I hope it gave you some information and some ideas about things you might want to think about.
Thank you, Pam. If there are questions from anyone who's attending today, we'd love to invite you to speak up or add those questions to the chat. I'll put a link to a couple of other resources, and just know that we'll be posting the slides from this session to our Aspen event calendar, so you can take a look and kind of think about all of those great points that Pam mentioned about the whole process of policy development. So I'll put a few more of those links there. But please do feel free to unmute if you have a question, and we'd love to hear from you.
I also didn't mention in the review section, but you do want to have a schedule for reviewing your policies so that you know that at least every year, every couple of years, all policies have been looked at. And a lot of places do. They just make a schedule and, okay, this meeting, we're going to talk about this policy, and the next meeting, we're going to talk about that policy. You don't want to do them all at once. That would be too much. But if you have a plan of we're just going to go through policies and review them over time, then over a couple of years, you've reviewed them all. Also, when you adopt a new one, it's really nice to keep the old original date when the policy was first adopted. But if you change it or revise it, add that to the document so you can kind of see the progress on the policy itself, so you know it's been reviewed or revised, and keep the dates on there. Well, I hope you found that helpful, Joni. That's good. I'm glad that you got some tips.
And Pam, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slide.
Oh, so sorry, Colette.
Oh, no,
You're
no,
right.
you're fine. You're fine. We
No,
have
somebody
tons
watching the chat.
of ways to be in touch with us through our website, newsletters, help desk, our event calendar. I did mention that we just actually opened up a new online course on Montana library law. And that's something I think that's really helpful, especially when we're thinking about the process of boards adopting policy. Pam mentioned that those need to happen in open public meetings, and this new course actually touches on open meeting law in the state of Montana, amongst a few other topics too. And then if you wouldn't mind advancing again, I'll be posting a recording from this session to our YouTube channel. And if you haven't already subscribed to that, we would welcome you to do that. We post new content, if not on a weekly basis, at least 3 or 4 times a month. So that's a place that you'll be able to watch a recording or share a link to this session with your colleagues as well. And then if we go to the next one, we do have another Tiny Tech session that's coming up on October 31st. So if you want to wear a costume to that one, that would be lovely, or not, as the case may be. But Bobby DeMontney, who's with us today, is going to give us some overviews on some of the specifics of the Montana History Portal, which is our online program that surfaces collections of Montana history, from photos to audio recordings and all kinds of things. So that's coming up on October 31st. And
Please let me jump in. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
There has been a switch with that.
Oh
It's
my
actually-
goodness.
Yeah. With all of the travel that's going on with the MHP and some new changes, then some stuff going on with the OCLC. I won't necessarily say full-on changes, but some updates on there. Laura Tretter's going to be joining us, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the connection portal and how that might affect things, cataloging and such.
Excellent. Good to know. We'll get everything updated with that change.
Thank you.
Speaker and the topic and that. So Pam, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. There's our evaluation survey. Again, if you want to take a picture of the QR code, or I put the link in the chat, and then I think we can go to the last slide.
Which is just my contact information.
Yeah, so if you have questions or want to get in touch with Pam, that's the way that you get a hold of her. And then I will put a link to our consulting webpage. So there's a lot more information that's good for board development and for directors, or for anyone who is wanting to learn more about the services that the State Library of Montana has to share. So with that, again, I'll invite if there are any other questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. All right, hearing none, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Again, the recording will be posted to our YouTube channel a little bit later today, as well as the slides. Thanks and have a great day.
Thank you.